Hi everyone, this is Dustin Stevens. In this video, I will show you how to set up your grade center to meet CCQ's ELC Blackboard requirements. Obviously, this video is intended only for ELC faculty at the Community College of Qatar. Before we start, let's go over what we'll need to do. First, we'll need to create categories. Second, we'll need to create regular columns for final and midterm exams. Third, we'll need to create weighted columns for SLC coursework, and if you teach listening and speaking portfolio. Fourth, we'll need to create a weighted column to display your class final grade. Fifth, we'll need to create a regular column to enter your cohort's final class grades. Sixth, we'll need to create an average column to display the banner final grade. And lastly, we'll need to reorder and properly organize our columns. So let's get started. The first thing we need to do is create categories so that we can align our grade columns with the correct ELC grade weighting. Open your course, select Grade Center, and open the full Grade Center. Select Manage, and then click on Categories. At the top, select Create Category. Write your category name, for example Coursework, and then click Submit. Repeat this for all other categories that you need depending on your class skill. You can also add additional categories if you plan to weight items differently for coursework or SLC. For me, I like to create homework and participation categories. When you've finished making categories, select OK to go back to your grade center. Now, we need to create regular grade columns for final and midterm exams. At the top left of the page, select Create Column. Give the column a name, for example, Final Writing or Final Listening. Under Category, select the relevant category. Enter the correct number of points possible. For listening and reading exams, this will be 30, and for writing exams, this will be 20. For writing exams, you can even add a writing rubric. Under Options, be sure to hide the columns from your students for now, and then click Submit. You'll need to repeat this until you have created all of your exam columns. Now that we have all of our exam columns, we need to create weighted columns for SLC, coursework, and speaking portfolio. In your Grade Center, go to Create Calculated Column and select Weighted Column. Let's make the SLC column first, so name it SLC. Make sure that primary display is set to percentage and secondary display is set to letter. Now we need to choose which categories we want to include in the SLC calculation. If you want every SLC grade to be weighted equally, select the SLC category and weight it 100%. If you want to weight columns and categories differently, you can also add them here. Just make sure that the total weight is 100%. I want all of my SLC projects to have the same weighting, so I'll leave the SLC category at 100%. When you're finished, click Submit. Now we need to follow the same steps to create the weighted coursework column. Name it Coursework, and make sure primary display is set to percentage and secondary display is set to letter. Now we need to choose which categories we want to include in the coursework calculation. If you want every coursework grade to be weighted equally, select the coursework category and weight it 100%. If you want to weight columns and categories differently, you can also add them here. In this class, I'll weight my coursework category at 50% and use this category for quizzes and in-class writing tasks. I'll add my homework and participation categories and weight them at 25% each, or a quarter of a student's coursework grade. How you weight columns and categories within SLC or coursework grades is your choice, but make sure the total weight adds up to 100%. When you're finished, click Submit. If you teach listening and speaking, make sure you follow these same steps to create a speaking portfolio weighted column. Now, we can set up our class final grade weighted column. Go to Create Calculated Column and select Weighted Column. Name the column Class Final Grade. Make sure primary display is set to percentage and secondary display is set to letter. Under Select Columns, we need to add all categories or columns that will be calculated into the student's final grade. Select all of the required ELC categories and move them to the right. If you click while holding the Shift key, you can select several at the same time. If you decided to weight SLC and coursework assignments differently, you should choose the SLC or coursework columns, not the categories. I have a weighted coursework column, so I'll remove the coursework category and use the coursework column instead. Now, let's assign weighting to each category or column. Make sure you follow the ELC grading breakdown. You can set other options, such as dropping the highest or lowest grades. Make sure the total weight adds up to 100%. When you're finished, click Submit. Next, we need to create a regular column to enter our cohort's final grades. Select Create Column. Name the column Other Instructor's Final Grade. Be sure to change primary display to percentage and secondary display to letter. Enter 100 for points possible. Make sure you hide this column from students and click Submit. Now, we need to create an average column to display the student's banner final grade. Go to Create Calculated Column and select Average Column. Name the column Banner Final Grade. Under Secondary Display, choose Letter. Under Select Columns, choose Selected Columns and Categories. Select Class Final Grade and Other Instructor's Final Grade columns and move them to the right. Hide the column from students and click Submit. The last thing we need to do is reorder and organize our gradebook. First, we need to set an external grade. An external grade is the grade that Blackboard understands to be the student's grade in the class. By default, Blackboard will set Total column as the external grade, so let's change that to Class Final Grade. Find your Class Final Grade column and select Set as External Grade. Now Blackboard understands that this is the student's class grade and will display this grade at the top of the student's My Grades page. Now let's reorganize the gradebook. Go to Manage and select Column Organization. First, let's delete or hide any unnecessary columns. The top columns with the Institution category cannot be deleted, but I can hide any that I don't need. Select all columns that you want to hide. Personally, I like to hide username, last access, and availability. Go to Show Hide and choose Hide Selected Columns. Next, let's delete columns that I don't need. We don't need weighted total or total columns anymore, so select these and then click Delete. Finally, let's reorder the columns so that they match the ELC standards. Simply drag the columns to the correct order. When you're done, click Submit. And that's it. I've successfully set up my grade center. I can now start creating regular columns to enter student grades on student activities. When you do this, make sure you select the appropriate category. After all of your grades in the column are entered, make sure you also change the primary display to percentage to convert student scores into percentages. Thanks for watching.